Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over some very big updates for the used car market. And seriously, if you are planning on buying a used car right now or trading in your car, you want to hear this information. Before we get in this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money, the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. Let's start things off by going over some data that was released by Cox Automotive when it comes to the number of used cars on the market. So they state that at the end of January of 2023, there's about 2.21 million used cars available on the market. And if you compare that to December, it's a decrease because December had 2.32 million used cars. And if you compare this to January of 2022, it's an even bigger decline because January of 2022 had 2.56 million used cars on the market. So not only are we seeing year over year declines in terms of used car availability, we're also seeing month over month declines. And so used cars are becoming more and more difficult to find. And this also shows in the day supply number. So at the end of January, the day supply number was set at 48 days with the used car market, whereas at the end of December, it was 57 days. So not only are there fewer cars, but there's fewer day supply. And if you don't know what day supply is, this is the amount of days that it would take to sell out of all of the used car inventory that we currently have. And then if you compare this to January of 2022, that was closer to, again, 60-day supply, or actually over 60-day supply, rather. That shows that, again, year over year, we're down big, and month over month, we're down pretty big. Now, if you're wondering why this is happening, what Cox Automotive states is that sales are far stronger than what they should be. Again, we actually talked about how used car sales were really strong in January, especially compared to new car sales, and that trend is continuing. If you're wondering, sales with used cars are up by 13% year over year, which is really strong. But the thing that's also very interesting is that prices, or listing prices rather, with used cars are actually down by a pretty large margin. So used car prices at the end of January averaged about $26,500, whereas at the end of December, the average listing price was $27,000. So month over month, used car prices went down. And if we look at it year over year, they actually have this little graph here, which I'll try to show in the video so you guys can kind of see. That shows the run-up of used car prices over the course of 2021, which we all know was crazy. So at the peak, before used car prices ran up, the average used car was about $22,000. And then at the peak, they were hovering right around that $28,000 price range. And so now they're down to $26,000 and some change. And so we're actually not down by that much compared to the peak, but prices have come down. And so this, partially explains the increase in demand for used cars, because if used cars are becoming more affordable, then that's obviously going to push more people into the market for used cars. However, not all segments are being affected the same, and this data supports exactly what I've been seeing anecdotally. So used cars that are under $10,000 are extremely hot, 35-day supply, so that is far below the average that we just went over, which was in the 40s in terms of the day supply. And then cars that are between $10,000 and $15,000, 42-day supply, still under the average. $15,000 to $20,000, close to the average at 46-day supply. And then once we get to the $20,000 to $35,000 price range, day supply, 50 days. So this is above the average. And then used vehicles that are above $35,000 have a day supply of 53 days, which is the highest. And that is, again, also above the average. And so what this shows is that, again, cars under $10,000, super hot. And this is exactly what I have been seeing in the real world, is if it's a car that's under $10,000, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like, it sells pretty dang fast. Whereas the more expensive used cars, they're sitting on dealer lots unless it's like the super high-end stuff that's really specialty that, people are still hot on. That stuff might be going a little bit quicker, but, regular run-of-the-mill cars that are more expensive, like, people don't really want to touch them. So let's talk about what this data means for the car market in the present and then also moving forward. So in the short term, with this, supply issue with used cars, it's actually pushing dealers to buy more used cars at auction and just pay more for used cars. Again, in a prior video, I talked about how the auction amount, or the amount paid at auction rather, was under 100%, and now it's over 100%. So dealers are literally paying over 100% of wholesale value for cars at auction, which I believe is going to push wholesale values up. Obviously, we are still in the month of February, and so it's too soon to tell, but I will not be shocked if the data at the end of February shows that not only did wholesale values go up, but retail values followed suit, because if dealers have to pay more for cars, right, they're going to naturally charge more for those vehicles. And so this is going to be, again, another bump in the direction of the used car market going back up, and, average prices going back up as well, which again isn't all bad news, because if you have been looking to trade in your car and you got hit really hard with the price declines that happened in 2022, then this little uptick, right, it's going to help you out, even if it might not be enough in your situation, right? I feel like any dollar helps. So for those of you looking to trade in a vehicle, this is looking like it could be a pretty good time to trade in your vehicle, because, again, with these higher wholesale values, you're going to get offered more in your trade. And if you happen to be purchasing, either an old age used car or a brand new car, then you might be able to put yourself in a situation where you'll be getting more money for your car and you'll be paying less money for the dealer car, which I feel like that is the biggest possible win you could see as a consumer. And so, my advice as always is to, obviously look into all of the numbers, be patient with your process with purchasing a car. But, when situations like this happen, I think it's always worth at least looking into. I don't think that it's, gung-ho and just jump right into it and, just purchase something. But, there could be a deal that you could put together, especially on, some of those new vehicles that are getting heavily discounted, that could make, sense in your particular situation. Now, in terms of the long-term effects with this recent price increase with the used car market, frankly, I see this continuing into the future. Now, obviously, I can't predict the future, but that is the trend. And what you have to remember is we're about to go into tax time, right? We're about to go into the spring selling season. And it seems like we're already in the spring selling season with how many people are currently buying cars. And so this will naturally, obviously make it so supply is even more constrained. Again, we are going into the spring selling season with pretty light used car inventory. And so that's just, I think, going to push prices up even more with used cars from a wholesale perspective. Then that'll naturally push up the retail prices as well. And so again, this could be a opportunity for some of you to trade in your car. Now, what you have to understand is, depending on what you're planning on buying, that could make it so the situation is better or worse for you, because, well, if you're planning on trading in your used car for another used car, then, well, you might get more for your car, but then you also might pay more for the used car. And then, with some new cars, we might, again, certain brands definitely aren't struggling with inventory, but we might start to see some constraint, because, some people might get booted out of the used car market because, if prices go up high enough, right, they might be like, oh, well, I might as well buy the new one if the used one is almost as expensive. And I am going to give a real world example of this a little bit later in the video. So there's definitely going to be a lot to juggle with the situation, but I guess that all you really need to know for today's video's sake is that this trend is, a trend of upward prices with used cars, and it's probably going to continue for the next few months, and potentially for the next few months after that, if the supply gets constrained enough. And now let's quickly dive into my real world example, which I find absolutely fascinating. So I was at the Subaru dealership filming today, and I was filming, some comparison videos and everything. And if you go to a Subaru dealership right now, what you'll find is that they have like no new cars except for WRXs. It's very, very strange. It seems like people just don't want to buy the new WRX. Anyways, they've got all these new WRXs, and the Subaru dealership happened to also have a used WRX. Now, the time that I was there filming, there were like 2 people that went and looked at that used WRX. And I was like, wow, this thing must be priced really low for people to be looking at the used one over the new one, because it was literally right next to all of the new ones. Well, then I look at the window stickers of the new ones that have like the exact same options as this used one, and I go look at how much the used one's going for, and I'm like, wait a second. They're really close to the same price. And so then I started pulling up other listings, and I'm like, wait a second, there aren't that many used WRXs on the market, and they're all priced around this amount, which is pretty close to what the new ones are going for. So why are people looking at the used ones? And if you're wondering, the price difference was probably about $2,000 to $3,000 given the exact car, right, and given the exact specs and everything. And so I'm like, why would someone not want to spend $2,000 or $3,000 more to get a brand new car, full warranty, right? And this used one happened to have like 6,000 miles on it, which is basically brand new, but that's 6,000 miles, it's not nothing. And I came to the conclusion that it looks like the car market is doing what it did when I was in the car business, where people basically purchased the maximum amount of car that they could afford on their budget that basically met their needs. And it seems like we're starting to go back towards that. So people aren't necessarily purchasing what is considered the best value. They're just purchasing what is most affordable for them. And I obviously, me as a value buyer, I find that very strange, but that's just kind of how a car market normally functions. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of these purchases where people are paying, what is considered, I would say not a great value for a car, but the reason they're doing that is because that's like the max of their budget. So like with this WRX, like let's just say the new one's $36,000 and let's say this used one's $33,000. This person's like maxed out $33,000. That's the most they can go. And so they'd love to buy the new one, but that extra $3,000 and the extra, let's say 15, 20 bucks a month that it would cost them, they just can't do that with their budget. And so I think that's another interesting trend that is actually putting upward pressure on the used car market. I know that's anecdotal, but I know that that's also becoming more widespread from what I'm hearing from car dealers. So to pull everything together, used car prices are increasing from a wholesale perspective at the same time that the supply is decreasing. This will surely push up retail values on used cars, which could be a great situation for those of you that are thinking about trading in your car. And at the same time, with certain manufacturers and with certain cars, new car supply is continuing to increase, which means that we're going to see bigger dealer discounts. I know we didn't talk too much about the new car market because this is a used car video, but anyways, that means we're going to see bigger dealer discounts and potentially more manufacturer incentives. And so this could create a pretty solid buying opportunity for those of you that are looking, and of course the fire alarm thing starts to go, for those of you that are looking to purchase a new car or potentially purchase certain used cars that, could be going against the trend because maybe it's old age inventory or something that makes it so that it's not going to have, the higher retail values that we will surely see in the near future. And so it'll be interesting to follow this trend. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this situation with used cars going up. Do you feel like used cars are still way too expensive, way too overpriced? Or do you feel like the market's starting to make some amount of sense because, used cars, on average are cheaper than the new ones. And so I guess that it makes sense for some of the used ones. Anyways, that'll sum it up. I'll see you.